Contraception is a controversial topic. That's why we've decided to tackle how Duke students perceive contraception here on campus. From gender to religion to socioeconomic status, we've investigated the different social factors influencing attitudes towards contraception and are promoting one platform, that global access to contraception is unequivocally a fundamental human right. An estimated 225 million women in developing countries would like to delay or stop childbearing, but are not using any method of contraception. Some family planning methods, such as condoms, help prevent the transmission of HIV and other sexually transmitted infections, while also preventing unwanted pregnancies. Family planning or contraception reduces the need for abortion, especially unsafe abortion. Family planning reinforces people's rights to determine the number and spacing of their children. By preventing unintended pregnancy, family planning and contraception prevents deaths of mothers and children.
What's the first word that comes to mind when you hear contraception?
Sex and protection, probably.
Safety.
Birth control.
Freedom and empowerment.
Birth control.
Condom.
Women's health.
Sex.
Condoms.
For me, it's a lie.
Why is that?
Just as my belief that the body has an objective truth to it, like the way the body is supposed to work, and the reasons we have parts that we have, and contraception gives us as humans the ability to take those parts that are meant to, in this case, reproduce, and turns them into something they're not, which is to take away the possibility of reproduction, whether it's via condoms, whether it's via the pill, abortion, whatever form of contraception.
That's an interesting question. I think I just think of it as a medical question more than anything else. I see it as being a procedure that people use to, within partnerships that are heterosexual, to not get pregnant, as using it to sometimes regulate the hormones in their bodies, to helping them with their daily life, as maybe being related to other forms of just like body health, I think is how I think of it.
Contraception is crucial for female empowerment. Its primary purpose is to prevent unwanted pregnancies. Not all understand the long-lasting implications that pregnancy can have on a woman's life, many of which specifically impact women over men.
I think that it is the utmost importance that students, especially around my age in college, use contraception. It's just a much safer way to involve yourself in sexual intercourse. Safe for both me as a man, her as a woman. Avoids the possibility of pregnancies, which I'm sure may serve as an inconvenience to some students. You asked how would I fit it into my life? Yeah, I mean, every time I engage in intercourse, I always use protection.
I think contraception is really important for women to be in control of their sexual reproduction. And personally, I do use contraception. I believe that contraception is something that should be available to all women, and I will continue to use it in the future until I want to have babies.
About half of pregnancies among adolescent women in the developing world are unintended, with about 23 million young women wishing to avoid pregnancy, but not using modern contraception. This puts them at a high risk of unintended pregnancy. Becoming a young or adolescent mother is extremely dangerous, especially in developing countries. Today, pregnancy and childbirth are the leading causes of death for adolescent women and of birth complications like obstructed labor and obstetric fistula. By helping young women time and space their pregnancies, family planning helps reduce the number of high-risk pregnancies and allows women to properly feed, clothe, and educate the children they decide to have. Studies show that by 2020, family planning could help avert approximately 7 million under-5 deaths and prevent 450,000 maternal deaths in USAID's priority countries.
I think it's a really important part of my life and my beliefs because I hope to pursue my career going forward and not have children till later on, if have children at all, and also get married till later on, if get married at all. So I think it's a really important part, and it really relates to women's rights to their own body and right to live their life as they want.
As for me personally, I will never use contraception moving forward. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. I am on the pill right now for menstrual stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I get married, because I believe in abstinence until marriage, as soon as I get married, I will stop the pill because I will be having sex, and I want that external truth to be recognized through my body.
Good. I think if it helps you with all the problems, you should absolutely take it. It should be considered a medicine.
I know that, and I think it's just a natural health fact that when you take birth control, can kind of regulate their period cycle, and I think that if with that reason alone, I think to my understanding of women's anatomy, I think that works out a lot better for them because their menstrual cycles will be expected at certain points, and they'll be able to kind of adjust their lives accordingly, and if it actually has all of the effects of controlling acne and all those other aspects, I don't see what would be wrong with just taking them regularly. But then again, I also am not too well versed in the side effects of birth control or anything like that.
I actually began using birth control for acne when I was around 15, I think, and it has made such an incredible difference in my skin. So I definitely think that it's something that should be used more often.
I think the big one is that it's a baby killer, that it's abortion when it's actually not. I think the big thing is that people don't understand what it really is. Even with Plan B, people don't understand that if you have ovulated and the egg is out and it meets the sperm, Plan B does nothing for you. It only stops the egg from leaving, so it stops ovulation, which isn't really killing anything in the first place. And that's the same with birth control, the birth control pill and a lot of birth control methods. And also for contraception, I think we often think about birth control and I just said that, but also a huge part of contraception is also having barrier contraception, which I think is not focused on as much because I think as you were saying for your other question, men think about contraception more of if they do think about contraception, it's more on the birth control side without realizing that protecting against STIs is just as important.
Definitely, especially in other cultures around the world. I know in particular Haiti, there's a stigma surrounding contraception in a lot of the churches there. They don't think that contraception is in line with God's beliefs of what you should do with your body.
I don't think so. I mean, not here, not in US, not that I know of.
So, do you feel the general attitude toward contraception is positive, or people are pretty they'll openly talk about it?
Well, people don't even openly talk about sex to begin with. So they certainly don't. It's not one of those topics that just randomly come up. You don't ask oh, how was the weather? Oh, have you had sex? I mean, it's not there is still that kind of a stigma, sure.
At Duke, absolutely not. I think there's stigmas against not using contraception.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
So I'm on a varsity athletic team and in a Panhellenic sorority. So the majority of my friends are sexually active, and therefore the majority of my friends are on the pill and use condoms. I think the fact that I'm not on the pill puts me in a great minority, and we talked one of my friends got the arm one, contraception. I don't know what it's called, but she was oh, you can feel it, and so you're feeling it, and I was oh, it's kind of weirds me out, but it's also kind of cool. It's just there in your arm. So I feel it's a very, and this is just on the way to West Union to eat. It's a very, I think, destigmatized, if that's even a word, topic.
Some families will not allow the children to learn about or use, let alone use condoms, birth control pills, or other methods of contraception. And that's certainly a stigma that, arguably leads to a gap in education for those children who emerge as adults and autonomous legally, financially, in terms of their relationships. We're then making decisions with less education than we might otherwise find in schools, for example, that don't use abstinence-only education.
I think that there's both stigma and just lack of information about a lot of different ones, about the pros and the cons. So I think that there's a lot of lack of information about contraception because it's seen as something that you only need to know about if you're having sex, which is not true. I think that there's a lot of lack of information about different types of contraception and how they meld with different bodies, or how you have options. It's not just one thing or the other. And I think that leads to a lot of fear because you end up exposed to a lot of myths about, for example, something being painful or something leading to infertility or something like causing depression. And that's often because you're only exposed to one type of contraception and told that is that.
Men, well, even with men, there is some stigma. Like if a guy goes to like Walgreens and buys a condom, then there might be like a weird look from the cashier. But overall in society, the stigma is definitely worse against women because traditionally women have been supposed to be filling this role of like a pure person, whereas with men, that's not necessarily the image that they're supposed to give off, even though that in itself is contradictory in a heteronormative society where you can't have both being, or you can't have women being pure if you want the men to be seen as being like more sexually active.
On January 23rd, Trump reinstated the gag rule, which freezes federal funding to health providers abroad who discuss abortion as a family planning option, even if they use funding for other services. The gag rule impedes the ability of international organizations to provide quality reproductive health care to women in 122 countries. These services include abortion as an option, but also provide forms of contraception, natural family planning, pre- and postpartum care, and countless other crucial services necessary for prospective and new mothers. Because the US is such an influential world power and ultimately funds crucial global health interventions, this gag rule will inhibit the ability of millions of women worldwide to achieve reproductive freedom.
I think governments should support it simply because it gets also used as a protection from STIs. It's like a vaccine when you think about it in a certain sense.
Like I think it actually happened in Colorado where they increased access of contraceptives for teens, and like teenage pregnancy rates fell dramatically. So starting at smaller scales like that would allow more people across the country to be open to the idea.
I think the government should 100% make it free for all women. It's something that is not, first of all, having contraception is useful for all people, though right now we only have contraception meant for people assigned female at birth. I think that's the big problem. There should be male contraception as well, but whatever. But because there's female contraception, it's incredibly important to have that as a fundamental right to 50% of the population's bodies. They deserve that right, and the government should 100% have that completely free.
In conclusion, we found that students' personal backgrounds and experiences largely influence their attitudes towards contraception, even on a liberal campus such as Duke's. By portraying contraception not as a controversial issue, but as a fundamental human right, we can work towards greater equality and equity for women and children around the world. We want contraception to be a normal part of the healthcare conversation. Let's start the conversation to end the stigma.